Alright, so for today's lab, we're going to be doing aseptic technique, and I want you guys to have an idea of what it is that you're supposed to do. So students sometimes get confused with the directions on the lab. So for this lab, because I want you all to practice inoculating a broth, inoculating an auger slant, and also making an isolation streak, that everyone's going to do a set of those together. So this is what your broth looks like. It's liquid. This is completely sterile. This is what your slant will look like. So the slant is basically just the auger that we have on our normal auger plates. It's just that it's been poured and then it's sitting on a slant. So you'll inoculate that, and then you'll also do an isolation streak. So for your plate, the way that I want you to mark your plate is that I want you to mark your plate in 4 quadrants. So the underside of your plate should be marked as so. Condensation off of there. And those will be your 4 quadrants for your isolation streak. Now before you transfer any bacteria into your broth or your slant, or moving it from anywhere at all, you want to make sure that your loop is nice and flamed, and this is something that we've done before. So you'll stick your loop, which looks like this, has a loop at the end. You'll go ahead and stick it through the flame, and you will take your culture. In this case, what we'll be using, we have Serratia, and then you have the option of using Enterobacter. The Serratia is in broth form. The Enterobacter is in a slant form. That's okay. It's all right if they're not the exact same media that's being used because they're grown in there. So we're just going to use the Serratia form of it. So after I flame my loop, I don't want to set it back on the table. I flame my loop, and then I can set it over here in my test tube rack that's just sitting upright, or I can continue to hold it in my hand. So I'm going to flame my loop nice and red, let it cool off, open up the cap of my culture stock. So this is your culture stock that has your Serratia, and it's always going to be labeled with the name of the organism in this lab class. So for this particular one, it's Serratia. Then I will put it through the mouth of the test tube through my flame. I will take my broth, do the same thing with that. Then I will take my loop, insert it into my Serratia, and then put it into my broth and just kind of give it a little bit of a swiggle and put them back through the flames, the mouth of the test tube through the flames. Now take my cap. Notice that my cap stayed in my hand the entire time. If you would like to put the caps down, make sure that you put them down right side up this way, so you don't want anything to leak down. So now this has been inoculated. You'll do the same thing with your slant. So flame my loop. I will take the caps off of my slant in this case, and my Serratia, flame them as well. Dip into my Serratia, and this time on my slant, I'm just going to drag it across the top of the slant. So it's really just a motion where you're just dragging across the top of the slant. Recap, and then that's done. Now to do my isolation streak. So I want to leave the lid on my auger as long as I can until I'm ready. When I'm ready, flaming my loop, taking my cap off here, flaming the mouth of that, open up my lid, take my Serratia, and I'm going to put it back down now, and I'm going to start in quadrant 1 at the very top. So I drag across into quadrant 1. After I've done dragging across into quadrant 1, then I will flame my loop again, pull a little bit from quadrant 1 down into quadrant 2. Flame a little bit more again, then go from 2 to 3, flame a little bit more, and 3 to 4. So that's how I would make my isolation streak. That's a little different from the way that you would make your streak plate. When you're ready to make your streak plate, you would take some of and you'll just streak it all the way across, which is different from when we performed our isolation streak. In this lab, you will also do cereal dilutions, where we have larger broth. So notice the size difference between the broth that you'll be putting just your Enterobacter or your Serratia in is much smaller than this other test tube. So there's a very noticeable size difference between the two of them. So for this, you'll have 6 of these test tubes, and when you do your cereal dilution, what you'll be doing is that you will label them 1 through 6. You'll take a little bit of the culture, and you'll follow your lab book for further instruction, but once this has been inoculated, you'll take some from this one to go to test tube 2, then to go to 3, then to go to 4, 5, 6, etc. So just as a breakdown to kind of help keep you guys organized, because sometimes that is the most difficult part of this lab, is to keep everyone organized on here, is that every student is going to either use Serratia or they will use Enterobacter. Once you've picked the organism that you're going to use, Serratia or Enterobacter, then you will make a broth, you will make a slant, and then you will do an isolation plate. So there'll be those 3 things for everyone at your table to do. So they're all going to do that. For the 6 test tubes for the cereal dilution, the larger test tubes here in the back, you only need to do a set of 1 of those.